So today we are going to be working on the underhand throw. The underhand throw is a great opportunity to introduce the idea of throwing an object. It is an opportunity for us to develop obviously locomotor skills, but our non-locomotor skills, our manipulation skills. We're able to work on understanding spatial awareness. Are we throwing the ball far? Are we throwing it near? Are we throwing it high? Are we throwing it low? Are we throwing it a partner or a target? And understanding force behind the throw. It's a great opportunity for versus the overhand throw. We are able to control the object a little more with the action, the motion that comes with it. So a part that I enjoy of the underhand throw, opposite of the overhand throw, is it is pretty easy to control your throw in comparison. One of the things that, one of the ways we have taught this throw is by calling it the Tick-Tock Throw or the pendulum throw. When you think of a pendulum or a tick-tock, it's a clock, and that clock swings every second. It's very fluid, very sound, very similar to the underhand throw, very similar to the motion. So when we get started, I'm going to turn and face my target. We're going to work on the tick, the tock and step, and the rock. So as we get into each step, we'll start off with the previously before the tick is to get into an athletic stance. So you want to make sure your knees are shoulder width apart and you're facing your target. You want to get that hand out in front, turn sideways so you can see out in front, and you want to make sure that you have a slight bend in the elbow. You don't want to have it fully flexed, as the fully flexed makes it harder for it to control. It gets a little difficult to figure out where you're going. The slight bend gives you a little more room for air and a little more control on the force that you are putting out. So we have the tick, athletic stance, tick. The tock is the backswing of the arm. So we have the backswing going back, making sure we keep that nice bent elbow. We're still facing our target. As that hand approaches the end of its movement in the back of the tock is when we want to begin our step. So we're here. We have reached the back point of our tock and our foot is planted. Now with the step, you want to make sure that you are not stepping with the same leg as your throwing arm. This can cause over rotation, make it a little harder to stay on balance. So instead, we're going to get to the tock, the opposite leg step, giving us that nice foundation. Someone can come push me over, try to push me, and I'm not going to fall over. I've got a better chance of keeping my balance. So we're here, and the rock is the transfer from the hand at the back end, coming forward as we step through, release the ball. We want to make sure we release the ball at our chest height, depending on what our target is. We want to keep it right around here. So it'll look like something like this. So we've got the tick, the tock, the step, and the rock. So one of the ways we can adapt this skill for anyone who's in a chair, it's the same pendulum motion going forward to back. If they're able to kind of take that step to build momentum to transfer that weight forward, great. If not, we can still have them do the tick-tock motion and rotating back and forth. Instead of taking a step, they can stabilize by grabbing the side of the chair, keeping themselves upright. Another reason why these beanbags are great is for anyone who has an issue grabbing a ball or at a weight. This, you can grab at the sides, you can grab in the middle, you can squeeze it. A couple different options to do here. Another great thing that we can do with the underhand throw is if they're seated or if they're in crutches or if they have walkers, assistive mobility devices, is we don't have to take the step, we don't have to get that transfer away, but we can get this motion down as best as we can, and we don't even necessarily need them to throw it at first. If a student is throwing the ball, they throw the ball, and it skips, it comes out their hand, and it skips. We can live with that. We can also work on getting the motion down by having them roll the ball instead of just throwing. To work on the roll. So one last adaptation that I forgot to mention earlier, and I think is huge in terms of getting those who are uncomfortable with the movements to kind of familiarize themselves and be more intentional with that action, is most kids, when they do this underhand toss, some may feel complacent to sit here and do the tick-tock and the rock without the step. So what you're gonna have to do to get those kids to take that step, and some may take a small step, but if you really want to be intentional, you can put an object on the floor, make sure that the child has a marker, the student has a marker that is able to visualize and see something that is supposed to happen. So with this marker, what we're doing is we're doing the tick, the tock, the step. We're going to step over that marker, or if it's tape, step on that tape and continue that action, so that we are being intentional with making sure that those steps are happening, not just through saying, make sure you take a step, but here's an object to direct that information or that action to be done. Awesome. So one of the best parts about the underhand toss is that we have the ability to mix up the equipment that we use. The motion stays the same. We're still doing that tick-tock movement step. That doesn't change, but we do have the option to use things like a tennis ball that's a little bit more fuzzy, a little bit harder, doesn't bounce as well, that travels through the air pretty well. We also have the ability to use a traditional tennis ball, less fuzzy, a little squishy, a little bit softer, definitely a lot more bounce, brighter colors. We've got a wiffle ball, plasticky. You can squeeze it, but it goes back to its shape. It's got holes. It's very light. It still bounces. Has these holes for the grips. One of the problems with these outside is it can have an issue traveling through the wind. We also have an adapted tennis ball, very squishy, a beginner's training ball that essentially can mold, you can grab, you can squeeze, bounces just fine, is very light. We've also got like a mini dodgeball, very grippy, very squeezable, can really get a hold of it. And lastly, we have bean bags, which are phenomenal because you can grab them however you want. They don't necessarily have to be held in a certain way. They can be done in different colors. Really adapting that equipment, really working with the equipment variations that we have to make sure that there is endless opportunity for anyone who may not like the texture of a tennis ball or doesn't like the softness of the training ball. Maybe has a hard time grabbing a ball, so the beanbag allows us to work with things. Beanbags are great because they don't roll. So there's just so many different options that we can use for the underhand toss and the different activities that we choose to do. Performing the underhand throw gives us an opportunity to play a multitude of games that link into many different aspects of fitness. We've got an opportunity to have a variation of targets. As you can see behind me, I've got a lot of buckets. We can start off with just throwing into buckets. We can throw to a partner. We can stand straight ahead and work on the throw and catch. We can work on throwing to just ourselves as we have the wall and we are working on throwing at the wall as the ball returns to us. We can set up, as I mentioned earlier, platforms to roll the ball or targets on the ground that we throw up and try to plop a beanbag onto the target. If we have a student who really enjoys Finding Nemo, we can set up different Nemo characters across the wall and let them know, hey, aim for Marlin, aim for Bruce, whoever the character is, Dory, Nemo. Give them motivations and targets to reach. It'll help get a long way with getting that skill down in a fun, engaging way for them. Now, there are a lot of games and activities that can be played to practice the underhand toss. We talked about a couple of different targets that we can use. A couple of different ways to make this more engaging and motivational is by having things like games, competitions, anything that is enticing. And it doesn't have to be me against a classmate, it can be me against myself or previous scores. And one that I like here, as you can see, is I have these buckets set up, and we can do one where the buckets are in a point system. And so my orange buckets are 1 point, my orange blue is 2, blues are 3, blue orange is 5, 4, 5. And what we can do is we can have the kids stand a ways away and work on that underhand toss to a target. We go for the 1 point. We go for the next. Oh, I missed. Go for the big one. Fortunate. I got it. How lucky is that? So different skill sets, different targets for points. We can do this with stuff on the ground. We can also do partner games where we have partners and we stand very close to each other. When we start off, we're doing the underhand toss. Partner catches it. What we want to do is every time a partner successfully completes a underhand throw and catch without the ball hitting the ground, everyone takes a step back, and we want to see as far back as we can get. But if we do slip up and the ball hits the ground or we drop it, what we're going to do, or a bad throw, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to that starting point, and we're going to go right from the beginning, work our way back, so on. Keep moving. Another great game that we can be done in pairs, teams, individually, is Horseshoe. And working on that underhand toss with a target. As we sit here, we continue with our tick-tock motion. So we're here, and we're lunging forward. We're trying to get the horseshoe around. Look, just another great example of being able to work on that underhand toss. Another great game is called the memory name game. We're sitting here in a group of 4 or more in a circle, and the objective of this game is to perform the underhand toss, but we're also working on remembering names and remembering directions. So the way this game works is we've got a group of 6 in a circle, and what we are going to do is the person that starts has the beanbag or the ball. They're going to perform the underhand toss, but before they do that, they are going to say their name and who they are passing to. For example, Eric, I am passing to Billy. No, Billy's over here. Great pass from Eric. Great catch from Billy. Billy has a couple rules. Billy is not allowed to pass to the person pass to him or to the person on their right or left. What they're going to do is pick someone. Got a couple options over here. He's going to throw it, say who he's tossing it to, you're going to catch it. Now that we're on to the third person, you're going to start to see a trend. I'm not allowed to pass it to third person, Sally. Sally is not allowed to pass the person back that passed it to them, or the person that passed it originally. So you can't pass to anyone who hasn't gotten it, or you can't pass to anyone who has made it pass already, and you must pass it to the others. And eventually we're going to get a chance for everyone to touch the ball, making their pass. When it gets to the last person will throw it to the person original, and we can start all over again. And we want to keep that same memory. We want to remember who we're passing to and who we're receiving from. And when we get better at this and the class starts to pick up the pace, what we can move to is adding an extra beanbag or an extra ball, so that now we are attaching more behaviors to the skill and really keeping those kids engaged. Now, the last example I'm going to use for a game is going to be more of a fitness game that incorporates the underhand toss. Essentially, what we're going to have is a couple of buckets or cups or targets, and we're going to work on that underhand toss. We're going to perform it from a distance, whatever we see fit, depending on the skill of the child or the student. We're going to work on the underhand toss. We're going to try to get into one of these buckets. And what's awesome about this is inside each bucket is a different activity that we're going to perform. Squats, 10 squats. So when that child, whether it's individual or group setting, has made that throw, they walk up, they come check it out. Squats, awesome. Whole class, 10 squats. Pass on to that beanbag to the next kid, makes it in, pulls it out. We have push-ups, or we have standing crunches, or we have modified lunges. Whatever the card is that is pulled from that bucket is a great opportunity to continue to practice the underhand toss while also practicing these other skills that we have to develop.